It's a scientific fact that the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease, long-term effects. Human beings, because of the size of the neocortex, we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. We can think about our problems and turn on those chemicals. That means then our thoughts could make us sick. So if it's possible that our thoughts could make us sick, is it possible then our thoughts could make us well? The answer is absolutely yes.
You're full of biological potential that won't be realized unless you move yourself around in the world into different challenging circumstances, and that'll turn on different circuits. Because you take yourself out of your dopey little village, and that's just the little bounded you that everyone knows and that isn't very expanded, and then you go somewhere dark and dangerous to the central place, and while you do that, you have adventures and they toughen you and pull more out of you, like partly because you're becoming informed, which means information. It means you're becoming more organized at every level of analysis, but there's also more of you too.
Already have daily habits, and they're probably not good habits. The human brain operates by patterns are established, certain neural pathways happen. You do something and the pathway is established and you're inclined to repeat it over and over and over again. That's how the brain operates. The brain operates through patterns and habits. It's inevitable. So there's not a single human being on the planet who does not have habits. It's ingrained in your behavior, in human nature. But there are two kinds of habits that you must understand. There are active habits and there are passive habits. All right? Passive habits are bad, generally. Active habits are good. You want the active habits. Passive habits are addictions. It's like, I've got to check my Instagram feed every 5 minutes, you know, I've got to eat this, I've got to drink that kind of thing. These kind of addictions are habits that are imposed on you. You're doing them over and over and over again, and they're not leading to anything. They're wastes of time. They're frittering away your brain power. They're draining you emotionally of energy that you need in life. Negative habits have a drain on you emotionally, and they waste valuable space in your brain. Active habits, we all have engaged in active habits at some point in our lives. And they are learning something, okay? So you learn a foreign language. You learn how to play the piano. You learn how to do a sport, right? And in the beginning, it's difficult, and slowly, as you do step 1, step 2, step 3, these kind of pathways are established in your brain, and they become automatic. And when something becomes automatic, you can go on to the next level, and you can become more and more proficient. Okay? So you want active habits in your life. So you need to do that on a daily basis with baby steps. So for instance, one thing you can do is you can try to slowly eliminate the bad habits, the addictions. You disconnect from the internet for several hours a day or longer if you can. You stop spending so much time, looking at the same sites or whatever, right? You've already freed up a few hours. You've got to now fill up that time with something productive, with something active. Well, take up something new that will force your mind to be active. Learn a new skill, learn a new language. Try to take on something that you've never done before. And then you'll discover that slowly in this way, you're developing this discipline inside yourself that will allow you to take on other challenges.
Most people then wait for crisis or trauma or disease or diagnosis. They wait for loss, some tragedy to make up their mind to change. And my message is, why wait? And you can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. And I think right now, the cool thing is that people are waking up. If you're not being defined by a vision of the future, then you're left with the old memories of the past, and you will be predictable in your life. And if you wake up in the morning and you're not being defined by a vision in the future, as you see the same people and you go to the same places and you do the exact same thing at the exact same time, it's no longer that your personality is creating your personal reality. Now your personal reality is affecting or creating your personality. Your environment is really controlling how you think and feel unconsciously, because every person, everything, every place, every experience has a neurological network in your brain. Every experience that you have with every person produces an emotion. So some people will use their boss to reaffirm their addiction to judgment. They'll use their enemy to reaffirm their addiction to hatred. They'll use their friends to reaffirm their addiction to suffering. So now they need the outer world to feel something. So to change then is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the conditions in your world. And the environment is that seductive. So then, why is meditation the tool? Well, let's sit down, let's close our eyes. Let's disconnect from your outer environment. So if you're seeing less things, there's less stimulation going to your brain. If you're playing soft music or you have earplugs in, less sensory information coming to your brain, so you're disconnecting from your environment. If you can sit your body down and tell it to stay like an animal, stay right here. I'm going to feed you when we're done. You can get up and check your emails, you can do all your texts, but right now, you're going to sit there and obey me. So then, when you do that properly, and you're not eating anything or smelling anything or tasting anything, you're not up experiencing and feeling anything, you would have to agree with me that you're being defined by a thought, right? So when the body wants to go back to its emotional past, and you become aware that your attention is on that emotion, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy, you're siphoning your energy out of the present moment into the past, and you become aware of that.
Every time you learn something, you learn because something you did didn't work. And that exposes you to the part of the world that you don't understand. Every time you're exposed to a part of the world that you don't understand, you have the possibility of rebuilding the structures that you use to interpret the world. That's often why it's more important to notice that you're wrong than it is to prove that you're right. One of the things that you're supposed to learn in university is precisely that. It might be useful to listen to people that annoy you on the off chance that they know something that, if they tell you, you can use instead of dying. Talking to people who agree with what you say is like walking around in a desert. You already know everything that they say. The reason you're associating with them in that situation is so that they never say anything that challenges you, because you're afraid that if you go outside of what you understand, that you won't be able to tolerate the chaos. But it isn't the case. People have an unbelievable capacity to face and overcome things they don't understand. And not only that, that's essentially what gives life its meaning. When you fall into the belly of a whale and you're swallowed up by something that lurks underneath, that you can come out the other side transformed. And that's actually how people learn.